Welcome back, hockey fans. This morning, I wanted to touch on penalties in APBA Hockey. So, as I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, penalties can really kind of blow your mind if you're not used to having penalties in the game, or maybe you don't quite know how NHL penalties work. Because APBA Hockey assumes that you have some understanding of penalties and when they're assessed and what the manpower changes are going to be. Um, so it doesn't explain the rules. The old APPA rules used to even point you to like the NHL rule book, I think, to determine what the rule changes were. But before you play a game of APPA hockey, what I would suggest you do is think about how you're going to handle coincidental minors based on the era that you're playing, because that's really the main change that you'll see, and just kind of figure out what rules you're going to go by. So just to give you an example, how the coincidental minor evolved over time was up until Wayne Gretzky's time. They didn't allow substitutions in the event of a coincidental minors. So what that meant is if you had two players go off for pushing and shoving, um, they would go out into the penalty box and teams would skate 4-on-4. Or I'm sorry, they would skate 5-on-5. But if with the I'm sorry, I'm wrong about that. So they would be 4-on-4. So what happened there in Edmonton in the early 80s with Gretzky, Messier, Teakin, how explosive they were, they would send out goons intentionally to start fisticuffs to get a 4-on-4 situation, to create open ice. So they were what was created in 85, 86 was the Gretzky rule. So that just meant now we were allowed to have substitutions in the event of coincidental minor penalty. So instead of giving teams like Edmonton an advantage on 4-on-4, they would go to 5-on-5. So you were allowed. So if you had coincidental minors, you were allowed to replace guys on the ice. So that rule stayed in effect until 1992-93 season. So they said, and ironically, that coincided with the decline of Gretzky's career. So in 1992-93, they went back to the original rules. So now no substitutions were allowed in the event of coincidental minors if it occurs during full strength. So just want to think about when you're playing a game, what era you're in and what how you're going to handle coincidental penalties. Because like I said, APPA doesn't. APPA assumes, I should say, that you understand a little bit how NHL penalties work. So, one other thing I want to mention about penalties and how APPA hockey works and how it affects the flow is it depends on the era. For example, for myself, I like to play 90s era teams. Now, unfortunately for the 90s, there were a lot of penalties. And if you look at you can go to any hockeyreference.com and you'll be able to clearly see um, the amount of penalties that were incurred were quite a lot. And if you compare it to like a modern game, it's a way less penalties than what you'll see like in like a more recent season of NHL, like the current season or last season. So when you're looking at an APPA card, the first thing I look at to determine if this guy is going to draw a lot of penalties at play results 65. So if you see a 65-29 there, that means this guy's not going to draw a lot of penalties on his card. So when you're rolling on his card, you're not going to see a lot of penalties. Now, on the other hand, if you look at a guy's card and you see a 65-36, or if you see anything like 34 or higher on the 65 result, that guy's going to draw a lot of penalties. So when you're playing like 90 sets, like I said, like I like to do, I'm going to see a lot of guys with this 36, which means if you have all five of your guys with like 36, or say 34 to say 40 on their cards, they're going to draw a lot of fights and penalties and coincidental minors, which can bog your game down. It really does affect the flow because you're writing down all the penalties. So if you're looking for a quicker game with less penalties, I would definitely suggest maybe looking at like the newer seasons of APBA Hockey, like the more recent seasons, and you're going to find those seasons flow a lot better. You'll see like less penalties. But if you just like the names, I don't care. I still like the names of this era, so I'm still going to play with these older sets. But it is going to, you got to be ready for a lot of penalties. So with this video, I'm going to touch on how APPA handles all the different kinds of penalty situations. So just to start with our basic penalty, let's say our just 2-minute minor penalty. So these would occur, and you just want to kind of look at the boards here, and you want to just look at the classic 2-minute minor would occur on like a play result 34-35. So you see right in forecheck 2 it says penalty 2-minute X, penalty 2-minute X. Then when we get down to play result 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, those are your possible fight rolls. So we might be checking for a fight, and if we don't get a fight, it'll probably end up with like a coincidental minor situation. So one really neat thing I like about APPA Hockey is the forecheck difference. So forecheck 3, a team is playing very aggressive. They're out there playing like their hair's on fire, pushing, shoving, doing everything they can to get a goal. But what that results in, though, on the forecheck 3 is you're going to see a lot more chances for penalties. So you could see like a 33 is a penalty on a forecheck 3, whereas on forecheck 2 it's just a coincidental minor, maybe even just a face-off. And you could see if you're in a really relaxed forecheck 1, it's just an interception X, so there's no penalty there. And you could see there's a lot more fights since everything's real aggressive, everybody's hot and hit. 36 through 39s are fights, whereas on forecheck 2 there's a chance for maybe even just a face-off. And even on forecheck 1, everything's kind of relaxed because you're holding a lead. You're trying not to draw penalties, and you get more just neutral zone face-offs instead of penalties. So, and just look at the boards and see, you could see like 3, you're going to get more penalties, 2, average amount of penalties, 1, you'll get less penalties. Okay, so going back to the penalty, so in a 2-minute, just a minor penalty, a player goes off, and you get an X on the result. So let's go in, we'll do an example here. Let's find someone had a play result 34 on their card. Okay, we'll say Michael Pavanka. A little quick backstory of I want to talk about myself in dice hockey. Before I even ever played a dice hockey game, first time I ever seen one played was when I was in college at the University of Pittsburgh in probably the early 90s. And my friend Eric, who's probably watching this, he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But at the student union at the University of Pittsburgh, this is like late 80s, early 90s when I was there, they had a group of strat players. These guys they must have been playing like a 89-90 Capitals replay, because they were playing non-stop Capitals games with strat hockey, cards and dice, face to face, all day. I mean, I don't know how these guys went to school, but or got their homework done, because they were playing strat non-stop in this student union. And all you'd hear, dice rolling, Kalle Johansson, dice roll, Michael Pavanka, Rod Langway, penetrate, inside. It was, and I was an APPA guy, and I was kind of shy, so I never Plus the guys I hung out with, they didn't really know I played APPA, but we just didn't say anything. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, man, I'd love to go and join those guys. But these guys had a lot of fun playing strat hockey, and I had never seen cards and dice hockey up until that point. But those guys, and that Pavanka, whenever I see Michael Pavanka, I always think of that those pit days. But let's say Michael Pavanka rolls a 56-34. 34 on a forecheck 2 is a 2-minute penalty X. So let's put Michael Pavanka in and set the time. So that was on the 10th time sequence. So we're going to write first period, 2 minutes. I'm going to write Pavanka, Washington. And the reason I'm writing it down is sometimes these penalties can get really crazy. And I'm going to try to simulate a situation where things can get really out of hand with the amount of penalties, just to kind of show you how we kind of handle it. Now for the time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the phone here and I'm going to roll for the time. How you roll for a time is you roll 2 dice. And you consult, there's a time section here. And this is just to get for fun, like how much, like when the penalty occurred. So I rolled a 31. 31 is a 28. So that's 28 off the tick. Now what that means is the tick was 10. So that was the 5-minute mark. So 28 seconds off of 5 minutes would have been 4:32. So this 2-minute penalty occurred at 4:32. Okay. So Pavanka goes in the penalty box, and now the 86-87 Winnipeg Jets are going to be on the power play. And how I handle it on APBA Hockey is I will circle when Pavanka will come out. So Pavanka will come out on the 14th tick. Okay. So that's how you handle just a regular 2-minute penalty. All right, now, whenever penalties occur, let's just touch on double minors sometimes. So let's just say, go back. Whenever a penalty occurs on a play result 12, 14, or 16, or a play result 35, you may have what's called a double minor penalty. So how double minors go is you have it's a 4-minute power play, but if a team scores a power play goal, then it goes right to the 2 minutes. It goes down to 2 minutes. So you'd have 2 players serving the penalty in the box. So let me go to the rules and you kind of see how they handle 2. We'll try to see if we can get a double minor. So additional minor penalties. So penalties which result in dice rolls of 12, 14, 16, as well as any penalties results from play result 36 can occur additional double minor penalty. So I intentionally put a lot of kind of goons on here for Winnipeg to kind of see. So let's look at their 12, 14, 16 results. So Jim Nill, let's see if he has any penalties. Yep, right there. He has a 35 right there. So we're looking at our forecheck 2. Penalties are 34 and 35s are 2-minute minors. So anything like 34 to like 40, we're looking at. So 34 to 40. So 12. So he has a 35 and a 35. So Jim Nill takes some penalties. So if he rolls any of these 3 results, 20 or actually rolls 35, 35, You have any? He has a 35 at 56. He has a 35 at 36. He would have to roll to see if he gets an additional 2-minute penalty. So Boschman, this is another goon. See 12, 25. So he has a 35, 35. So he would roll if he hits any of these two, or if he hits one of his other 35s. 36, 35, 36, 35. Let's look at somebody that doesn't take a lot of penalties, like a Dave Christian for Washington. So he has a 12, 25, 14, 30, no penalty. 16, 28, no penalty. And he doesn't even have a 35 on his card. So there's no way Dave Christian would even ever get a double minor penalty. And we're going to come back to Dave Christian. If you notice one thing on his min rating, he has a 0. There's a special little rule we're going to touch on when you get the rare guy that doesn't take any penalties at all. He could even have his minor penalties wiped out too. All right. So let's just go back to our player Jim Nill. And let's say he rolled a 14:35, which would put him in the box for 2 minutes, a 2-minute minor penalty on a forecheck 2. So what you have to do to see if he may even have like a double minor is you have to re-roll the dice on his min rating again. So if he rolled a 14:35, he's in 2 minutes. Then you have to look at his min rating, which his min rating you could see is a 43. And if I roll a 43 or less, he's going to get a double minor. Let's see, I roll. Oh, yeah. 23. So Jim Nill's going to go in the box there for 2 minutes, 2 and 2. So he'll have a double minor penalty called on him. Now, what you also do is you'll check for coincidental minors. So if you do get a double penalty roll, like a 12, 14, 16, or a play result 36, you do have to check for a retaliation minor with the other team using the coincidental minor penalties method. And that's actually what we're going to do next. So that's how you do double minors. So double minors could possibly occur on if you roll 12, 14, or 16, or if it's a play result 35 or 36, play result 36. So coincidental minors. So going back to our Gretzky rule, let's just say we're using modern rules for this game, even though it's 86-87 and the Gretzky rule would have been in effect. Let's just say we roll a coincidental minor, and this comes up a lot, this play result 33. So you get that play result 33, it says coincidental minor 2-8, neutral zone face-off 9-12. So let's say you roll the 2-8. So let's say I rolled a 6, so that's a coincidental minor. Let's just say our friend Jim Nill rolls that 33. Let's see. Actually, let's see. Let's make someone different here. Try to find someone good with a 33 I could use here. Okay, Michael Pavanka is good for this one. So Michael Pavanka has the puck. Let's say instead of that 2-minute minor like he rolls a 36-33. So how you resolve coincidental minors is you have to see if someone on Winnipeg meets their min rating check to kind of get in a fisticuffs here at Michael Pavanka. So how you handle that is you go highest to lowest on the min ratings and you roll down. So you go through everyone on the ice, and if I can get through the 5 skaters and the goalie, without getting another successful min check, then Pavanka will just get a 2-minute penalty on his own. So let's say Pavanka rolled for a coincidental minor, and we're going to find the highest min guy on Winnipeg. That is the center, Larry Boschman. You can see he has a min rating of 44. 44 on his card. So I'm going to roll 2 dice and see if I can get a 44 or less. 36 right away. So he's the highest guy. So what that means is Pavanka and Boschman are going to go off for 2 minutes. 2 minutes each, and we're playing post 92-93 rules. So people are there. If it's the coincidental minor occurs while the teams are 5-on-5, you go to 4-on-4. So that's very key. Remember, I'll repeat that again. So if the coincidental minor, this is post Gretzky rule, after modern rules. If the coincidental minor occurs during a 5-on-5, the teams go to 4-on-4. That's the only time a manpower change occurs. So if one team is already on a power play, then they could substitute those 2 players. So the power play doesn't change. Let's say you run a 5-on-4 power play. After a coincidental minor, it still stays 5-on-4. And those 2 players that got the coincidental minors would just get sent to the box, and they can't come out until the next whistle after the 2 minutes are served. So in this case, we'd have Pavanka go off, and Boschman goes off. Okay, let's say we keep the same guys on the ice. So when you're in 4-on-4 on APBA Hockey, how the play adjusts, how the flow adjusts for the open ice situation is both teams are now going to be rolling under forecheck 3. If you remember, forecheck 3 creates a lot more shot opportunities, as well as interception and shot opportunities by your opponent. So that also could affect your O-Day. So your defense adjustments can go down because you're in forecheck 3. Plus, you're going to get more shots on goal. In addition, when you're on 4-on-4 in APPA Hockey, everyone's shot range on the ice is increased by 2. So we would begin with a face-off, with Duncan versus Christian, and then the forechecks for that 2-minute time where it's 4-on-4, both teams are rolling on forecheck 3, and then adding 2 to their shot range. Now, when you have a coincidental minor, one thing you also have to check for is misconducts. So how you look at misconduct, so before we send them up to the penalty box, Pavanka and Boschman, we have to roll on their misconduct rating to see if they got a 10-minute misconduct. Now you could see the misconducts are typically a lot less. So you could see Pavanka has a 0, so he's not going to get a 10-minute misconduct automatically, because there's no way he could roll below 0. Now, but look at our friend Larry Boschman. He's a 14. So we do have to check and see if he gets a 10-minute misconduct along with this. Oh my goodness, he did. He rolled a 12. So Boschman gets a 2. He's in the penalty box for 12 minutes. And I'm not sure about this. I don't even want to say it, but I'm not sure if someone comes in and serves his 2 minutes with him or not, but that's something you guys can maybe research. So I'm pretty sure in that case, it's called 2 and 10, where the 2 players go in the box. So a teammate of Boschman's will go in and serve his 2 minutes. So that would be Boschman have a penalty on top of that. That sounds about right. So one of Boschman's teammates would have to go off the ice, and then Washington would have a power play in that situation. They call it 2 and 10 misconduct. Now let's go to majors. Now major penalties don't happen a lot in APBA hockey because it's pretty much only on that play result 40. So you have to have a play result 40 to get like a major penalty. That would be more like you're intending to injure somebody, or something like you're headbutting, or it's really like a bad major penalty. Because a major penalty is it's 5 minutes in the box, and the other team can score as many goals as they want in that 5 minutes, and there's no coming out of the box after 5 minutes. There's not many guys with 40s on the ice right now. Let's go through. Like I said, I'm looking at like 65 and their 30, 14, 16, 36, 56 results. No 40s there. No 40s there. Well, okay, yeah. Ed Kastelik, you could see he's like one of the goons for Washington. He has a 40, he has a lot of 40s. Look at that, 1240, 3240. So this guy is just a fight waiting to happen. He's a 5-minute major fight. So you know the fight results are like that 36 to 39. So he has a fight there, fighter major. We got fight, 36, fight. So Ed Kastelik he's coming out ready to punch somebody in the face. Laurie Boschman, he's the other, he's the goon for Winnipeg. So he's like a fight on 65. So they're not as bad with that. But that's how you handle their coincidental minors, 5-minute majors. You also want to roll for the misconduct as well. So APBA hockey, if you get a now one infraction you could have even greater than the 10-minute misconduct is you could have a game misconduct where the player is ejected. So if you roll for the misconduct after a fight, so after you roll fights, let's just say Boschman and Kastelik get in a fight. So after they get their 5-minute majors, you also have to roll on their misconducts to see if they're ejected. So Kastelik is ejected, and you have to roll on their miss rating. The miss is the third number over. It goes 45, and Boschman's 14. So if Kastelik rolls a 45 or less, he's ejected. In case he rolls a 65, he's not ejected. Let's roll for Boschman. Boschman 54, his miss rating is 14, so neither of those players were ejected. They just go to the box for 5 minutes, and substitutions are allowed. That covers all the different types of penalties. Now there is one other nice situation, just on the other side of fights and majors, but if you have a player on the ice who is... actually, one thing I want to cover just on that misconduct, if you roll a misconduct penalty after a fight, he doesn't necessarily get ejected. You have to roll just one dice, and if the result's a 6, he's ejected, and that's only after fights. But if he does get the misconduct after rolling a major, then he is ejected. But just remember, the fights don't have as many as ejections has, just like a regular 5-minute major. If you get like some really guys like Dave Christian here, if you find some guys in your team that don't take penalties, like Dave Christian, see his min rating is 0. So if you have any players with a min rating of 0, and he rolled a 36-33 to get his penalty, you roll 2 dice, and if you get a roll of 11 to 46, no penalty occurred at all on that play. So you say I rolled a 34, so Christian will not have a penalty. 51 or 56 means he stays with the penalty. So if you get a penalty on a play result 33, there'll be no penalties. So let's see. One other thing I want to cover too, that the way APPA cuts back on fights is there's a chart here called the fighting major fine-tuning chart. Now, what I've found, actually I've done a few replays of like Stanley Cup series. The APPA game engine gets the total amount of penalties correct for the era that you're playing in. But this fine-tuning chart was developed because if you start always with the highest major rating guy on the ice, that guy with the highest he's always the first one checked, so he would always get like a disproportionate amount of the penalties because he was always like the first guy checked. So what they came up with was this fighting major fine-tuning. So you could see if you get one of these fight numbers, like card 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, what you do is you roll again, and just to determine if it changes from a fight to just a coincidental minor check. So you could see the 36 is the least chance of a fight, whereas if you get like a fight on a roll of 40, like our buddy Ed Kostelic has, he has a lot bigger chance of a fight. So you roll this now. So if you roll in this range, it's going to stay a fight. And if you roll in this range, based on the fight result, it'll just be a coincidental minor check. So if you do roll for a fight, what you do is you roll the dice one more time. And this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goal rank is the rank of how high the major ratings are on the ice. So if let's do an example here. So I'll roll 45, and you can see that's 2. So when I do my check of see if there's a fight opponent, I'm going to start with the number 2 ranked guy, and go 2, 3, 4, 5 goalie, then go back to the 1 guy. So you can see that number 1 guy, like the highest major rating guy, isn't always the guy that gets hit with the 5-minute fighting major. It could be one of these other guys. That's done to it's done just to prevent like the one guy on the team getting a disproportionate amount of the penalties. Now this is totally optional. I mean, you don't have to do this at all, but it's just an optional rule to kind of get penalties more in line, so one guy isn't taking all the penalties. And you also remember you have to check for misconducts. Okay. Okay, so let's see what else. So one thing I want to just keep in mind, which can really throw some folks off, is like if you're already on a power play situation and you roll a coincidental minor on a power play, just remember there's not going to be any change to the power play manpower advantage. So you just have to send those 2 guys off. So if you get that play result 34 when you're already on a power play, don't sweat it. Like, oh my God, I already have 1 guy off and now I got 2 guys going off. Don't sweat it. Just put the X down and send those 2 guys off. They're not allowed back on the ice until a time stoppage after their 2 minutes is up. So nothing changes on that power play. NHL rules, you can't have less than 3 skaters and a goalie on the ice. So you're not going to get down to like a 2-on-2 or 1-on-1 situation. So the manpower changes only occur on the 5-on-5. So don't get bogged down with that. You could have your classic 2-man advantage, which would be like then you also get that shot range +2, which is or shot range +10, which is very powerful when you get the 2-man advantage. So just to keep that in mind, when you get multiple penalties on top penalties, just use the X. And just going back to my example here, 432. Let's just roll another penalty here on the next time sequence just to see how that would time out. Let's just say one of our guys got the puck. Let's say Kostelic. Let's see what he rolls. Remember Mr. Penalty? 46-45. That might be a bench minor. Let's just say he rolled a 65. Oh my, here we go. Kostelic 65-38 is when they're on the shorthanded. Here we go, Mr. Kostelic, fight 2 to 8x. So you see one roll, that guy already got a fight. Let's just say we rolled a 6. So we have a fight. So we're already shorthanded. His team's already shorthanded. Now he's starting a fight with somebody. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use that penalty fine tuning. First, I'm going to roll and see if it's a fight or a coincidental minor. And remember, he rolled a 38. So I rolled a 24 on Kostelic. So there is a fight. See, it's between 11-52. So now we're going to see who his fight opponent's going to be. So we're going to see the highest mage rating on the ice. Actually, let's roll on our next chart here just to see where we're going to start. 24. So we're going to start on the #1 highest and go down the list. So the highest rating mage is 23. So we have a 23. We have a 15. We have a 0. We have an 11. We have a 21. So the best chance that he's going to fight opponent's going to be this other hothead, Jim Nils. Let's see. 25. So no fight there. Let's go to the next guy here. Was that 21 guy? So Brad Berry. Oh, there we go. We rolled 11. There they go. They're lining each other up. Gloves are off. Brad Berry versus Ed Kostelic. They're duking it out. Kostelic puts his Berry sweater over his head and punches him in the face a couple times. And here come the refs. Okay, so let's check for the member of the Misconducts. So Kostelic was a 45. So he rolls a 63, no misconduct. And Brad Berry doesn't have he has a 0 on his misconduct, so he's not going to get a game misconduct. So Berry and Kostelic will go off the ice, and you just substitute those guys. Let's put in Greg Adams. And Jim Kite. And let's put so you can kind of see how the time works. So 5 minutes. That was Barry. For Winnipeg. You had Kostelic. Spelled it wrong. Castellic for Washington. First period. That was on the 11th tick. Let's roll time. 43. 18 off the tick. So 11th tick would be 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So 18 off 5:30. 5:02 or 5:12. Five minutes each for fighting. And then back on my sheet, what I'm going to do is count off the 5 minutes. 1, 2, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they can come back on that 21st tick. And Pavanka's penalty stays where it is. So we continue to skate 5 on 4. And play resumes. Like I said, so don't sweat it on when you get those penalties on top of penalties. Just send the guys off and bring the fresh guys in. And just remember the manpower changes only occur when you're 5 on 5 even strength. So you go 5 on 5 to 4 on 4. So that's a little bit of APPA Hockey. It's a 41-minute video. Just want to cover a little bit how that works, and just however you want to do it. I mean, I personally just use the circles to kind of show when they come off. Then when the penalties are over, I just put a check when that penalty's done. And then when these guys, we hit that their time, so you guys would check, and just go down the list. So you get the penalties add up, put the checks on, and just it helps to get a good understanding of the penalties ahead of time, what rules you're going to use on the coincidental minors. But, and also just keep in mind when you're looking at the APPA card, just look at that play result 65. You see some 29s there. That means that you're going to have some teams that aren't going to have a lot of penalties. But if you see like 36s there, those are the sets that are going to have a lot more penalties than normal. But I have done some replays and checked the penalties, because there were some. I enjoyed the 95-96 season, for example. Lots of penalties in that year, and I was thinking, man, this is a ton of penalties. Just penalties on top of penalties. But it ends up being, if you look at penalties per game for that era, that's just the way that era was. So if you, especially if you're playing like the 73-74 Flyers, I mean, you're gonna have penalties all over the place. Like every time Schultz is going to touch the puck, he's probably going to have like a fight. So keep in mind the area that you're playing in. If it does have a lot of penalties, APPA is going to reflect that. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I covered a few things on penalties. And going to come back here another few, maybe one more video this weekend. I want to touch on the matchup chart, which was a really fun chart to use, and maybe even the long pass one. So have a good day, and thanks. Bye.